This is Columbus Concerns, a public affairs presentation of North American Broadcasting. Here's your host, Mark News.
And good morning, and thanks so much for joining us today on Columbus Concerns. With us on the program today is the Executive Director of First Responders Bridge. Mick Yinger is here, and Mick, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it.
Mark, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
For those who don't know, what is First Responders Bridge?
It is a nonprofit that provides expense-free retreats for active and retired first responders and their significant other who are dealing with depression, anxiety, PTS, or just feel like the years on the job have changed them or their marriages from what they were when they first started.
It's interesting. Most people don't go to work every day and deal with tragedy or deal with extreme stress. But first responders do. That's their job.
Right.
So that has to take a personal toll.
It does. And what we do as first responders is we don't want our families to go through what we go through, so we keep it bottled up inside. And that's what ends up leading to problems in our marriages, problems on the job, and then eventually the high divorce rates and the high suicide rates. Each year, more police officers and firefighters commit suicide than all line of duty deaths combined.
Mick, you were a police officer, correct?
That's correct. I retired from Columbus Police.
Tell me how you got involved in First Responders Bridge.
So I was actually retired living in Virginia near Smith Mountain Lake, just kind of enjoying retirement. And on, as you know, on February 10th, 2018, Westerville police officers Tony Morelli and Eric Joring were murdered when responding to a 911 hang-up call. And that their funeral just brought back so many emotions and so many memories of all the friends I've lost over the years, both in the line of duty and to suicide. And the day after the funeral, I got together with my best friend, Mike Pavlino. Mike had just retired from the Westerville Police Department as a detective and a SWAT team leader, and he did 4 tours overseas as a chief warrant officer, 3 in the Army. And we were just talking about Tony and Eric, obviously, but then just all the friends we've both lost over the years. I've had 2 former partners and close friends that have committed suicide. I had a former academy classmate that took his own life. I was forced to take someone's life out of a shooting, so I know, not only what the person goes through, but I know what the family goes through also.
Mick Yinger is here. He's the Executive Director of First Responders Bridge. So talk a little bit about how the organization got started, how you formed it, and what it is exactly that you do.
So we knew that, when Mike and I first said, okay, let's put pen to paper, what are we going to do? We knew we had to start with a foundation of 4 things. First, we knew that we had to include the spouses and the significant others because they walk with us every step of the way, even when we don't let them. Second, we knew we had to include dispatchers and corrections officers. They often get forgotten when you think about first responders. And I'll be honest, when I was on the job, I didn't think about mental health in any capacity, but I especially didn't think about what they go through. And the more that we do this, the more I see all their stresses. And then third, Mike and I knew that if First Responders Bridge was just led by he and I, it would fail within the first year. We knew we had to put a great team around us, and that's what we did. Our board is made up of first responders, clinicians, and business leaders, and they are the reason for our success today. And fourth, we knew that at each retreat, we wanted them to hear the name of Jesus. It's not a religious retreat by any means, but it's something that we felt called to do. And so 2 of our speakers have that traditional Christian message, but we let our attendees know ahead of time. Look, if you don't feel comfortable, in these sessions, we understand. And but it's been very powerful, to do that. 2 of our speakers are also speakers with Billy Graham International Law Enforcement Retreats.
And you have a retreat coming up, correct?
We do. We have one coming up next month, April the 21st through 23rd. That one's been full for about 2.5 months now. Mm-hmm. And we have people come from all over the country. We've had over 950 people attend our retreats from 36 different states. And I'll be honest, when we started this, I had no clue that people were struggling so much. I'll be honest, when my shooting, I never think about. It's just something unless somebody brings it up, I don't think about it. But the kids, the things that we've dealt with the kids, I still, I have nightmares and things like that. And that's what our first responders are dealing with, or even worse.
So tell me about a retreat. How does it work, and what happens during the weekend?
So they hear from peer speakers who've been through what they're going through, and they persevered. One of our speakers was dealing with such flashbacks and nightmares, he started taking meth to stay awake because whenever he would go to sleep, he would have these horrific nightmares. Well, obviously, it led to a really bad addiction, and he lost everything, and it led to a suicide attempt. And by the grace of God, the gun didn't go off. But so when they hear from our peer speakers, because we don't sit around police stations and fire departments and talk about our feelings, and they realize that they're not alone. They're not the only ones going through this, and that's pretty powerful. You can see their shoulders go down when there's 100 and 115 people in a room with them, and they're all going through the same thing. That's when the healing can begin.
You just mentioned you don't sit around the police station and talk about your feelings. Is there still, for some, a stigma attached to having bad feelings or having these thoughts or having marriage problems or any sort of a mental health issue?
Absolutely, and it's I think it's starting to break a little bit because I think and we still kind of run into it every now and again. The supervisors, the chiefs, the ones that have been there forever, we just didn't talk about this thing. So this is all new to them, and so they're not pushing it as much. But the younger generation's coming up now, and they're a lot more willing to accept that. But you asked about the retreats. We also bring in, after we have our clinician or our peer speakers, we bring in clinicians. It's not, we don't do counseling sessions, but they let them know why they're feeling what they're feeling. But then they give them tools to deal with it because we want them to know there's nothing wrong with them. They're having a normal reaction to the abnormal things that we see every day.
Yeah. And after a retreat, is there do you steer them into help with the clinicians?
We do. We give them clinician referrals right there from the retreat, and then we refer them to other organizations. Our retreats are educational and informative. Now they're getting a lot of healing, but there's organizations out there like Save a Warrior. There's organizations like Ohio Assist. They get into the more deep healing. So we want to make sure that we refer them out to those organizations because we all work closely together. Are
most of the people who come in retirees like yourself, or are they on the job?
No, I would say probably only 5% are retirees that we're getting. Unfortunately, we're trying to get out to them, because that's when you're done with your career and you have time to just sit and reflect. We know a lot of them are struggling, so it's just trying to get them there because there's still that stigma of that age group that really doesn't want to reach out.
And when it comes to the firefighters and the police officers and the others who you help out, are there resources available on the job that maybe they should be taking advantage of?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the city of Columbus. So I saw a stat from the Ruderman Family Foundation. It said about only 3 to 5% of law enforcement agencies have mental health programs. I mean, that's horrible. The city of Columbus has an incredible wellness center. It's away from the department, so first responders can feel comfortable going there, and people won't see them or because of that stigma. But Lisa Callender is over there. She's the director of the Employee Assistance Program at the City of Columbus. She does an amazing job. And they have chaplains there. They have peer support that work out of there. It's probably one of the best in the country.
Our guest on the program today is the Executive Director of First Responders Bridge, Mick Yinger. And Mick, talk a little bit about First Responders Bridge. And first of all, is there a cost involved to the first responder?
No, we pay for their lodging at the Marriott Northwest Hotel. We pay for their food, and we pay for the speakers that come from across the country. They're 3-day retreats. We never want finances to be the reason someone doesn't get the help that they need and deserve. So we rely on corporate sponsors. We have amazing sponsors, community donations, monthly givers to help forward our mission.
And talk a little bit about, I know that there's a plan where people can help you out if they want to, a monthly donation.
That's right, and that helps so much. So our first level is $9.11 a month, $9.11 a month, and even if they can just give a small amount, you're helping us put these retreats on, free of cost. 94% of all the money that we bring in goes to our program. So we're really good stewards with our money, and just any penny helps.
Mick, can you talk about how people can get a hold of First Responders Bridge? You have a website?
We do, firstrespondersbridge.org.
Mm-hmm. And if they want to call you, is there a phone number?
Yep, it's 614-271-4981.
I'm sure that over the years, at these retreats, you've seen a lot of people who come to you and say, this really helped. Talk about some of the stories.
Yeah, so I got a kind of a funny story. This was they were from Alabama, and this couple came in, and I believe he was a firefighter. I'm not 100% sure on that, but after the retreat, I was sitting there talking to our board chair, Hugh Cathy, and this couple came up to us, and they said, we just want you to know that you saved our marriage. We were going towards divorce, and this has saved our marriage. So, we're getting ready to drive back to Alabama, but we're going to stop at Skyline Chili first because we've never had Skyline Chili. I said, so wait a minute, we saved your marriage and you're going to Skyline? I go, this has been a fantastic weekend. So, but we've had so many people say, that they were suicidal before the retreat. They had a suicide plan in place, and then the retreats just completely saved their lives. Some of them still help with our organization even. So it's been very powerful. It's something that obviously Mike and I never dreamt that we would ever do together. We grew up together since the 7th grade, and it just has really just taken off, and we're really thankful for that.
And besides just the retreats, you have a conversation going now.
We do. And then one thing that we do, and ours is coming up this weekend, we have a one-day follow-up retreat for all of our past attendees where we bring them in and we just continue to pour into them on their mental health journey. And then our goal for next year, we're adding a 4th retreat next year just because we're filling up so quickly. And then we want to be able to provide all of our attendees with 6 free counseling sessions paid for by us. Mm-hmm. There's still that stigma where they don't want to reach out to their own insurance because they're afraid that their departments are going to find out. Smaller departments either don't have insurance or it's not good insurance. And then if you think about the volunteer firefighters, they're responding to the same runs, but a lot of them don't have insurance at all.
Right.
And so we want to be able to provide that for them with clinicians that we vet that have experience working with first responders.
Which, what you mentioned there kind of leads into another question, and that is that if you're a police officer or firefighter or other first responder, if you say you have a mental health issue or if you're going to get mental health issues, what impact could that have on your job? Because, obviously a police department might look at someone and say, if they're having an issue, I'm not sure that they need to be out there.
And a lot of the stigma there is also your peers.
Yeah.
If I'm a police officer and I know someone next to me is really struggling, is he going to be, is he going to go off on someone, or he? I was talking to a local police chief. They've sent 10 people to our retreats, and they said out of the 10 people that have come to the retreats, they're having less mark-offs, less complaints, and less uses of force. So we're getting incredible results, but they have to realize, and it starts at the top, that you're allowed to reach out for help. Columbus does a great job where they get them help right away. They don't pull them off the street unless it's an extreme situation, but they get them help.
Well, it's interesting because I know that, like, for example, I just recently talked with someone from the Ohio National Guard, and the Guard and the Reserves, they've really made the anti-suicide campaigns in the military a top priority because it's been such a difficult thing in the military. Is the same sort of thing happening with first responders?
It is, and we get a lot of first responders that come that are also military, and so they all deal with the same type of things.
So you have this plan where people can give you donations, monthly donations, and you said you had some good corporate sponsors. Who are some of those corporate sponsors who help you out?
American Electric Power, Mount Carmel Health, Kokosin Construction, Coughlin Automotive, Bryant Heating and Cooling, the state FOP, the local FOP, AT&T, NetJets. So we have some amazing, and I know I'm probably forgetting some, but I feel like a NASCAR driver right now.
Oh, yeah.
Them all. But RKE Trucking in Westerville, and I'd love to just tell this story real quick.
Sure.
When Mike and I, Pavolino and I started the bridge, we had an idea. And I was told that, this guy in Westerville, Ed Deem, that owns RKE Trucking in Westerville, he's a big supporter of first responders. So I go knock on his door. I said, look, we want to help first responders. We don't even know that it was going to be retreats at this point. He writes us a check for $5,000 that allowed us to get our, to get a checking account, to get, to get our nonprofit, to get incorporated, all that. And just because he had such a heart for first responders, and he's still one of our sponsors, and he's become a really good friend.
Also, that the first responders help people in need a lot, and tell me a little bit about that. About they'll go into a home with no food.
Yeah, and that's the thing I don't think that people realize. The fact that they do that. I knew there was a group of officers on the south end of Columbus at one point. They had a storage unit, and they would fill it up with coats and boots and things, and they would take it to families in their area, and they're just doing this out of the goodness of their hearts.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, you see firefighters running into buildings, and you see police officers just stopping a bank robbery or that, but you don't think about them seeing the daily human tragedies, and that's got to take a toll.
It does, and one of our, Lisa Callender, she refers it to like this. She says, it's like every one of these runs go into a bucket, and they just keep going into a bucket, and then the things you deal with at home just keep going into this bucket, all these stresses. And if you don't find healthy ways to empty that bucket, that's what's going to lead to problems on the job and at home.
Again, Mick, tell us your website and how people can get a hold of First Responders Bridge.
Yeah, it's firstrespondersbridge.org. We have a big donate button right there. You can't miss it. So we'd really appreciate any size donation. Would really help us to keep this going.
And tell us, when it comes to the retreats, about how many people can come at a time?
Honestly, I like to keep it around 100, but we're kind of getting to the point where, I probably had 6 chiefs call me since we stopped registration, and we've added people. We're at 122 right now for our next retreat. That's a little bigger than I want to be because I like it to be personal. We break down into discussion groups by profession, and it's very powerful. But I think the smaller the groups, the better. But we try to keep it around 100 at each one.
Are most of the attendees from the Central Ohio area?
Yes. We've had people from 75 of the 88 counties in Ohio have attended, and 36 different states. Now, the overwhelming majority are from Ohio, but yeah, we get people from all over.
Well, clearly, if chiefs are recommending people, the word's getting out.
And we see a lot of supervisors at our retreats because it's confidential. I mean, if a chief were to call me and say, hey, did Joe come to the retreat, I won't tell them because we'll lose all credibility if we do that. Mm-hmm. But we get a lot of supervisors. We had an Ohio sheriff, and this is a few years ago. I don't even think he's in office now, so I got to be careful how I say this. But he contacted me, and he really needed to come to the retreat, but he was afraid that people were going to find out, and he wouldn't get elected again. And he ended up not coming. And I'm like, man, I wish he knew that it was confidential and that he would reach out for that help because you could tell he needed it.
Yeah. Again, the stigma coming through. With
right.
People need to understand that this is like any other health problem.
Right. That's a fact.
Yeah. And for those who want to continue with a clinician or something like that, and I know you talked a little bit about the referrals, generally do police officers and firefighters, does their insurance cover the cost of that?
It depends on the department. The larger departments, yes. The Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, Cleveland, yes. A lot of the smaller ones, they may have like an EAP program, but you call and you talk to someone on the phone. It's not as personal. So that's why we're looking to do this. That we want to be able to provide it for them. And that would take all the problems out of it, but that's going to cost us about $250,000 a year. So, it's going to be a while before we get there, but that's our goal.
Are there other organizations like yours around the country, or is this unique?
So I'll tell you a story. The director of the Billy Graham law enforcement retreats came and spent a weekend with us. Mm-hmm. And after the retreat, we were talking, and he said, "Our program is inspirational. Yours is restorative." And I think the reason is that a lot of people bring in the speakers, and it's the peer speakers and things, and make inspirational stories. But we follow that up with clinicians. we follow that up with, different, for example, we bring in a lady by the name of Allison Uribe, and she's the spouse of a San Antonio, Texas police officer, and they have a ministry called Wives on Duty. So she brings a lot of perspective to what our significant others go through. She's written 2 books to significant others. I think that's what sets us apart. But then there's organizations like Save a Warrior and Ohio Assist, both 2 great programs. They get more into the really deep, healing than what we do.
Talk about the benefit of having the spouses there.
That's huge, and that's another thing that sets us apart is having the significant others there, because we hear so much that one thing that we talk about, like I mentioned earlier in the show, is that we keep everything bottled up inside.
Yeah.
Because we don't want them to go through it. Well, on their end, the significant others think he's either doing something he shouldn't be doing, or he won't talk to me. So one thing that we talk about at the retreats is kind of within each couple is going to be different. How much do you really want to know? And then how can we communicate this? If I had a bad day, we tell them, call ahead of time, just say, look, kind of had a bad day, we had some rough runs, and then they know, maybe don't, jump on me for not taking out the trash as soon as I get home. Yeah. And then we tell the first responders, don't take advantage of that. Don't call home every day and, tell them you had a bad day just so you don't have to take out the trash. So we talk about communication a lot.
Well, I imagine, for most people, they go home and they unload.
Yeah, and that's a fact. And there was a Columbus police officer that made a comment, and it really stuck with me. It said, how can we help people in crisis if we ourselves are in crisis? Yeah. And that goes back to what that chief said. The people that have come through the retreats, they're in a better mental health position because they're not having the mark-offs, the complaints, and the uses of force. So I think this is something every first responder should go through.
And what sort of response are you getting from the overall law enforcement and first responder community? So
we take our clinicians do a great job of tracking performance outcome measures at all of our retreats. They do it several different ways, but one of them is just a very detailed evaluation form. Mm-hmm. And 99.5% of our attendees have rated our retreat either 4 or 5 stars out of 5, with the overwhelming majority being 5 stars. And if you've been around first responders at all, it's hard to get them to agree on anything. So we're really happy with where we are.
And talk a little bit about how you work with the medical community.
Yeah, we kind of work very closely with them, especially our firefighters. They're always taking people. You talking about into the hospitals and things.
Well, I mean, when you talk about the clinicians and the mental health community.
Yeah, so we have great clinicians that volunteer at our retreats, but then we also vet clinicians in the area that have experience, or all over actually, that have experience working with first responders. And our clinicians do that because that's one of the things that's really hard for first responders, because our stresses are just so different, than maybe a general public. I saw a stat recently. It said that the average person will see 2 to 3 critical incidents in their lifetime. The average police officer will see 700 critical incidents. And so we need to find clinicians that are used to dealing with those 700 critical incidents, and we're doing a good job of putting them in front of them.
Well, it's interesting because, you talk about your retreats, but it's obviously so much more than that. Goes on every day with the First Responders Bridge. And again, Mick, the website, if people are interested in either giving or getting involved.
It's firstrespondersbridge.org.
And they can call you as well?
Absolutely. 614-271-4981.
Our guest on the program today has been Mick Yinger. He is the Executive Director of First Responders Bridge, out there taking care of our first responders. And Mick, thanks so much for stopping by today. We really appreciate it, and thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Columbus Concerns, a public affairs presentation of North American Broadcasting. You can send questions or comments about today's show to Columbus Concerns in care of this station, 1458 Dublin Road, Columbus 43215. Or email us at columbusconcerns@napcomedia.com.